that's a horrible backlit there. But plan was get that quad at least sitting on its own 4 tires today. So basically get the whole front end put back together, get it on its tires, and then just not worry about the plastics, so that I can do the valve lash as well as the check those enrichers on those carbs. But as you can see, it is raining. Now we need that. It's been really dry here. It's been that is horribly backlit. Let's see if we can get some better lighting. It's been horribly dry here. It's been horribly dry pretty much across the entire province. As far as this project is concerned, yeah, I guess I can't really have the tarp off because the air vents, the one just goes into the air box, so it's not a big deal. If a bit of water gets in there, it's easy enough to clean out. But the other air vent is sitting up perfect, like a cone for the water just to funnel right on into, and that's going to the that's the converter air vent. And so I don't really want a lot of water getting in there. I don't want to have to pull that apart, dry it out, whatnot. So I think we're basically going to leave the quad covered for now and see how the weather goes. And hopefully I can continue on putting that thing together today. If not, tomorrow, I guess. Today's Saturday, tomorrow's Sunday. Plan was have it completely back together, everything done by the end of tomorrow. So that hopefully if we get enough rain and the bands get lifted, we can get out for a ride next weekend. But for now, just gonna have to sit out the weather and see what happens. We have a bit of a break in the rain here, so I've peeled back the tarp, and we're gonna get on to putting these handlebars on. Last night I left you guys where I was putting on the upper brace clamp for the steering stem. Little tip, I almost dropped one of the bolts down this vent tube. This goes to the converter housing, and so that would have been a bit of a disaster trying to get that out. I would have had to pull that whole converter apart. So shove a little shop towel in there, fix that up. If you drop anything, it won't fall right in. On top of that is clean your steering stem a bit. Just get all the dust and stuff off of it, dirt, whatever's on there. Put this clamp together, including the bolts through up here, right? And then because it's greased, it'll slide down nice and easy in place. Otherwise, with all of this in the way, all these wires, hoses, whatnot in the way, you're gonna have a heck of a time trying to get that put together down here in place. It slid down nice and easy. Like I say, it's all greased up. It's supposed to, right? And then I torqued these up to, I'm pretty sure it was 18 foot-pounds, I said last night. And that is it. Now, what you can do is go in from way up front here with a extension, and you can actually get to those bolts both sides, so that you can actually get a torque wrench in there as well as a wrench period, because it's a disaster trying to get in there. And other than that, that was nice and easy. Now we got steering again, and it's working nice. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to put the handlebars in place. So these handlebars, they're supposed to have a punch mark on the bar where it lines up. Come on, get this rubber coater rubber in place here. Does it go over like that? I don't think that's how that goes. I did tear it. I think it actually goes way up here. Let me try to see. No, it doesn't go that way at all. I gotta figure out how this rubber actually supposed to lay down again, because it goes like that. It goes down that way, so it does go this way. It goes way over way over like that. And then as I move stuff around, it'll come back around. So it's got to come around. This part's supposed to go over this vent tube. And I think this part goes over this vent tube right here. Like that. Because this works as a splash guard here once you get your plastics in place. So just like that. All right, now these handlebars are supposed to have a punch mark on them. Now I did replace my handlebars because I had a wicked roll on this thing once and bent up the originals, and I don't remember if I bought actual Kawasaki ones or not, but there's supposed to be a punch mark somewhere right close to the I don't want to rub this because I actually marked it by pencil when I took it apart, but somewhere right by like that, almost maybe by the knurling here, it's supposed to be a punch mark somewhere. Anyways, that you line up with the top of this bracket. So if it's on the front side, you would line it up like right here, and that's supposed to put at factory positioning. What I did was, before I actually took the handlebars off, is I marked, where is it here? I marked the clamp. I just put a pencil mark right here on this clamp, and that is marked with the handlebar. So when I put it on, I just line up those pencil marks, and that will put it back where it was prior to me pulling it off. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get these up and in place. The torque spec on these is 22 foot-pounds, and they say to so the instructions are odd. They say to tighten the front ones first all the way, and then tighten the back ones. And they say, so this is the part that doesn't make sense to me, then later in the manual it says if it's done correctly, we will have no gap on the back and an even gap on the front. Well, doesn't make sense to me, because if I tighten these front bolts first, it means I should have no gap on the front and an even gap on the back. But they specifically do say tighten the front ones first, then the back ones second. 22 foot-pound torque. So I'm going to get this up and in place. It's going to be too hard for me to hold the camera and do this all at the same time. I'm going to get those up in place, and I can bring you guys back after. Okay, and there we go. That is it. Both torqued down nicely. You can see here, maybe you can see there, but I got my two pencil marks just right above my hook there, lined up. That's where I put them. I actually marked this side as well, but I was trying to find that that little punch mark for demonstration purposes there, and rub my other pencil mark off the handlebar. So we went by the one. It's going to match anyways. Big thing is just make sure that you got the knurling underneath the clamps, or between the clamps. And I just made sure that I had even amount of knurling on the outside of both sides of the clamps to make sure we're, you know, even left and right. And now it's deciding to start to rain again, so I'm going to quickly cover this up and wait for another break in the rain. So after this, basically we're going to get back onto doing the front differential and finishing buttoning everything up on that. At this point I should be able to, yeah, my cable is now down where it should be, and I should be able to hook up that breather tube as well fairly easily now that it's not being all pulled from the handlebars being flipped over off on the front here. So that is next stage. So I've secured the brake block. I've put the breather line back on. I'm just good doing the shift lever. So I got the shift lever in place, right? And this rubber piece, it goes up here to seal the cable. But then there's also this nut here. Hopefully you can see that. You actually have to thread that all the way down. You actually have to thread that past the where the rubber piece goes, because you need this exposed cable to fit that through the little slot in the case, just like that. And then you fit that down like that, and then you can put this nut back on. So get it past the first bit of threads, then start it on the next set of threads. Get that up there, and then we'll get this rubber back in place so that we keep that cable sealed, just like that. Okay, want to make sure that's up there nice and tight where it's supposed to be. There we go. Now we can put this shift lever. I guess you didn't need to have the shift lever on there just yet, but you basically, because of the restrictions on how this is, you have to put it on this way and then spin it, flip it like that. Now it can't come out, and you have your punch mark right here. So now we can put this in here, try to get this on and in place. So I would put it on the first bit first, because once you get the one half of the jaws in the groove, then you can adjust for where the punch marks are line up and worry about it at that time. This does not want to go on there well. Holy man, I'm not getting these teeth to line up well for that to slide on. And I spread it apart pretty good. I don't really want to spread it apart much more, but I might have to, because that is getting difficult. It's being very difficult. And we got somebody around here that's got a noisy piece of garbage. Sounds like it's running like crap. Let's see if we can spread this apart a little wider. Whoa, does that ever sound like it's running like garbage? That's fantastic. I'm gonna go grab a bigger screwdriver and spread this jaw apart a wee bit farther so I can get that on there. I had to move the camera because it was just getting in my way, and I was having too hard of a time trying to get that all aligned and see what I was doing, whatnot with it there. So I got rid of the camera. I actually gave myself a bunch more slack in the cable, adjusting that up there. I had to use some vice grips on this part here that holds the threaded portion, because it's now slipping. It's supposed to be crimped to that pipe, but it's slipping. So I used a set of vice grips and held it down. Hopefully I didn't damage it any, but we'll see. So then I gotta buy another cable. No big deal. So anyways, it is on there now. I got the 2 dots lining up. If it's like with all the cable slack right now, it can go down and hit the housing, right, like that. But once we actually get it set up for the proper poundage of pull on the lever, it will be fine. So my remaining thing that I have to do is just tighten up this nut to the case here so that the cable doesn't move on at the case, and that's it. I am done for that part. And then we can move on to putting the axles in and start putting the suspension back together. I think we'll get the axles in first, and then I'll put the A-arms in. And then once the A-arms are in, then I can use the brakes to hold the pinion, so I can tighten up that pinion coupler nut. And yeah, holy, we're getting real close now, so this is pretty nice. All right, so I am going to prep the axles to get put in this into this front diff and into their hubs, and yeah, I'll be back with that. To put in the front axles, basically you need to wipe off any old grease that's on there. Apply some new grease. They say use a disulfide molybdenum grease. I use a wheel bearing grease. It's a high temp grease. If it works for high temp applications, it'll work for low temp applications, and it should work for any heat that shows up in a front differential, as well as these are just splines, so really they shouldn't see much movement or play at all anyways, so it works good. I use it for everything. I don't know. So I'm gonna put in the left one first because it is got the little extra steps of making sure you interface these splines with the teeth in the differential. The right one is the same process, just easier. So we'll do one, and then the other one I'll do off camera. So I've wiped off the grease off both sides. You want to inspect your splines, make sure that they are in good shape. There's no chips or abnormal wear or anything on both ends, and these ones look really good. And you want to make sure on your inside spline for both of these that you still have this metal ring in place, because that's actually what holds that spline into the differential. All right, and so now we're just going to apply a very liberal amount of grease. And I'm going to apply it to this as well, and this is where the seal rides, so we're going to apply it there as well. Basically make sure you get all the splines just nicely packed in. It's going to push it out as you slide the splines into the diff splines, but at least then you know you got a good amount in there that will keep that nice and lubed. I say these see very little actual movement, you know, a little bit side to side, but really shouldn't be much play in there at all. Most of your side to side play should be in this ball joint here, CV joint. It really shouldn't be with your splines. All right, so I got that heavily greased, way more than I actually need, but it'll do just fine. I'm not going to do the outer spline yet. Same idea for the outer spline. Put some on there before you put it in the hub, but I want to leave that dry, so I'm going to be hitting that with a hammer to set this side in. So I don't want to have a bunch of grease mess on there. So let's go slide this into the quad. I got my axle. I'm just going to pull out the rags that I threw in here. Remember how many I put in. This is 2 right here, and this will be the third one. We want to make sure all of that comes out so we don't tear it while it comes out, and so that looks solid. And then I'm also just going to give a little visual inspection, make sure we're empty. Perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to actually bring you up here. You can see we have those really jagged teeth. So you got the seal, the bearing, then those really jagged teeth. Those have to line up with these teeth on the axle. All right, so these ones way up here, if I can make it visible. Yeah, right there. And at the same time is we have to get that spline way in there to interface with the spline for the spider gears carrier sections. Hopefully you're still going to see what I'm doing here. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh, I just greased myself up, but better than dropping the axle in the grass. What we want to do is slide this in nice and easy. They say to grease the seal here as well, which like that just did that, but I also put more than enough grease up on the sealing surface anyways, So that seal's getting lots of grease. All right. And basically just turn it till it locks in. There we go. So there was two interfaces. So I felt one of them go in, which was most likely the spline on the axle itself, and then I turned it just a little bit more, and that would have been the bigger set lining up with the teeth on that big ring, right? And I can feel that turning in there. Sounds like it's turning everything. Okay, and then you just want to give her a couple of easy whacks on the end with a dead blow hammer or like some sort of soft type hammer. This one's a little light. It should be a heavier hammer. I should have a good dead blow, but I can't seem to find it. Alright, you just want to give that a few whacks, get it in there. That one's not heavy enough. I might actually have to go grab a bigger hammer. Let's see if I can just push it in. There we go. I actually just was able to push it in. So didn't even need the hammer on this one. And then basically you just want to give it a light pull, and it shouldn't come out easily. Okay, and that's in there. So that's it. And then you put some grease on this spline here, and just slide it into the back side of your hub. So I'm going to clean that hub out. Just pull a rag through it a couple of times, grease this, slide it in. Okay, so that's inside in the front diff. I got this all nicely greased up. Basically, we're just going to pull the control arm, not control arm, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? What do you call it? I want to try to get this right in here good without getting a bunch of dirt in there. The hub. And we're just gonna feed that spline in there. There we go. Give her a couple of wiggles back and forth, and we're all good. All right. Then you put your axle nut on. No Loctite or anything on that either. And they torque to 145 foot-pounds. So I'm going to hit the brakes on this. I'm going to do the other axle first, get it to this point. And then I'm going to pull the brakes on this, and we'll get these torqued. And then after those are torqued, we're going to torque the coupler nut on the pinion. And then everything is torqued down and ready for tires, I think, after that. Oh, A-arms, not tires. A-arms are next after that. So we will get to that. Both axles are in. Left or the right one is already torqued down to 145 foot-pounds, which is a lot. And so now I'm just going to torque this one. There we go. So that's down to 145 foot-pounds. Now, just a matter of putting in brand new cotter keys in both sides. So you got holes that are in opposing directions. So just find whichever one will fit a good sized cotter key in there. So I've got this big kit. I'm just going to choose the biggest one that'll fit. So that's the biggest right there. Now that's a big key. It's really long. I don't know if these other ones are the same thickness. Let's see here. What sizes is this? So this says 50 pieces of 5/32 by 2.5 inches. So that's what these are. It's 5/32 by 2.5. Then 1/8. Just 4/32, and then 1/8 by 1.25 inches. So I don't really need those big ones. That would work really well. I'm choosing these ones, not this one would be better because of the thickness. It's thicker and it does fit through the hole nicely. But it's only 1/32 of an inch thicker, so it's really not that much. But it's so long that I'll end up having to cut legs off because you'll never get it all bent in here to fit the boot over top. So we're gonna go with the shorter version. I'll put that in there, and I normally like to bend them over top this way. You can bend them around the nut as well, so put it in the other way, bend it around the nut, but I like to bend them out. So I like to bend one out this way. And then the other one in. So when you put it in, you want to make sure that you put the shorter end on the inside, the longer end. There's always, with these things, there's always a shorter end and a longer end, right? So I put the longer end to the outside so that it's the one that's bending over the axle here, and then the shorter one bends inwards towards the nut. And just a couple whacks with a hammer, just kind of get that right in there nice and tight so that the rubber boot will fit over top nicely. This one's harder to get to. Let's see here. Okay, that should do it. And give that a little twist. Just so that it'll fit the boot. There we go. Give that a couple more whacks. Then you just got these little rubber dust boots. Go right on over top. And they just kind of catch the back side of the nut with a bit of a lip on them. And that is it. That is the axles installed. I'll throw a cutter key in the other side, do the same thing. And then we can get to putting in the A-arms. Now we could have put the A-arms in before the axles, but just because it's constantly raining today, I really wanted to get these axles in, prevent any moisture from getting inside the differential or in the hub. So that part's done. Now to lock this so that it didn't spin while I was torquing down that the axle nuts, and I'm gonna actually torque down that pinion nut as well, is I basically just put a C-clamp on my brakes right here for the front. And so I didn't use the clamp to actually compress them because that's going to compress them too much. I pulled the handle back as hard as I could, and then I just put the C-clamp in place to hold it. So the handle is not being pulled back any harder than if I was doing like an emergency braking type situation. So I should be able to handle that with ease. So I'm gonna put a cotter in this one, and then this coupler nut. Now that everything's locked, I'll be able to torque that coupler nut really easily, and I'll get that done as well.